Now we're live.
Hello, everybody. You're on first, by the way. You're on first.
I'm going first. Sorry, of course we're eating something just as we decided to go ahead and go on the air.
Chocolate.
Because
We needed an energy boost. Because
hashtag,
it's hot.
hashtag professionalism.
Isn't this okay for me to steal? Get
Oh,
us
by
in.
all means, yeah. And if you want a glass to pour it into,
Nah.
okay.
Do not open the portal, sir.
But he wants to.
Oh, he's been trying for the past 5 minutes.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Damn.
Blog Talk Radio.
All right, so
Oh,
we have,
a new toy.
yes, we're here. Lee's here.
Hi.
Ben's here. Ben's my
What's
birthday
up, Ben?
present.
Yeah,
Oh, he's very impressive.
he's big.
He's 7 foot.
He's 7 feet tall. He's crouching right now, obviously.
Yeah. No, he's very impressive. I like him.
Yeah.
He's Nico's buddy.
I
Me-
bet.
I am going to be in such trouble when he goes outside.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, so
Does he like sit in his lap or something?
Yes.
Oh, this is
yep,
He
Yeah.
sleeps in Ben's lap.
yep. I think I need to kill that light.
Don't kill lights. It's bad for you.
Very gently turn it off.
Mm-hmm. It might get revenge.
Better?
That's a little better, yes.
All right. So hope everybody's doing okay. We're doing okay.
It's hot.
It's hot. Yes.
Let me just say it again. It's hot.
Yep. But
It's not as bad as it's been.
no, this is very true. And,
Knocking the wood.
No, the smoke is back.
Do you need to get over here?
I'm okay.
You're okay.
I so wish he was a puppet.
Uh,
I'd have so much fun.
but yeah. So let's see what's going on.
Let's see. We got Summerween this Saturday that
Yes.
you and I will be at for festivals.
Yes. Festival that's going to be over at Oddballs.
And collectibles in
I-
Richmond.
Yep. Over on.
Henrico.
It's Henrico.
Henrico.
It is Henrico, which
Woohoo!
we're here to talk about tonight.
Yes.
Funny enough. But yes, that's just off West Broad Street in that, I forget what the name of the plaza is. What?
It's
I-
where the Joann's and the Food Lion and all that
I think
are.
it's
the Hot Pot.
Oddballs, Collectibles, and Claire's Antiques.
Yeah.
So they're having their annual Summerween there, and we'll be there with a bunch of other spooky vendors.
With a new book that we're actually now selling.
Relatively new.
Yeah.
Well, relatively new. It's
It's been out for a year, but
It's actually been out for a couple of years, I think. But the Return of the Richmond Vampire.
I
which
do
we're
not
featured in.
Yeah, Return of the Richmond Vampire by our friend of the tour, John Rickstraw.
I do not have.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we will have his book for sale.
Yep, we just got a limited number of copies of it, but they're
What
all
happened?
Gravity.
but they're all first edition. They're all signed by John. So yeah, I recommend. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and get your hands on one of those, really, the festival's the only place for you to get your hand on them right
Yeah.
now.
As we don't have them available online.
Nope. So you can come check that out.
John Marshall House Tours.
John Marshall
Marshall
House
House.
Tour. That's going to be. Is it just a week from this coming Friday now? Yeah, I think just a week from this coming Friday. Good.
Yeah. Shades Inspector says
I thought
this
it's Saturday.
Friday.
Huh?
It's
Is it on
Saturday.
Saturday?
It's Saturday.
Oh, Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Saturday.
You're
Yes.
off a week.
Yeah, I'm off a day. But anyways, yes, we're yes.
I'll be there, and I think Beth is also. Or what?
Yes, I'm the other tour guide that night.
Yeah. So
Sorry, I just did the August schedule, and you're on that one as well in August. And I'm
With Jeffrey. No?
Marcia is doing this.
Oh, it is Marsha.
Yeah.
we got so much going on.
We do things.
Yeah, we do things. So we got that going on. Then in we'll be back to talk to you again before this, but about a month, just over a month from now, is Richmond Comic Con.
Yep.
That's actually exactly. No, it's not. It's not. It's not the 19th.
Yeah, it's on the 19th. So
Okay.
a month and 2 days from now, Richmond Comic Con. Beth and I will not be there, but
Lee
I
and
will.
Marcia will.
Lee will
I'll
be there
be
with
there.
Marcia. So you can go hang
So
out with
excited.
them and and check out the spooky merch there at the Richmond Comic Con. And starting this next month, we have
Choose your own tour.
we have tweaked our schedule. So we're effectively 365 days a year now for tours.
It's official.
It's official. So there are some caveats to this. Basically, we do still have our fixed schedule on like the weekends. So if you look at our calendar, you're going to see something like Churchill Chillers or Shadows of Shaco, Spectres and Shades of Corden, whatever have you, will be scheduled on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Depends on what time of year it is, stuff like that. Every other night of the week where we don't have something fixed on the schedule, you will see an option for choose your own tour. And it's exactly what it sounds like. We have 6 walking tours now here in town, and you will have the opportunity to be to set the stage for any given night. First come, first served. You go ahead. If you go in there, you jump on that slot. You have to buy a minimum of 2 tickets, and you also have to do it 2 days in advance.
Yes.
So
For example, if you on the 9th of August want to choose your own tour and you haven't had a chance to go on our Shades and Spectres tour of Port End, you would select that. You being the first one who has picked it, you chose the tour for that night. It then becomes a public tour for everybody else to buy tickets to Shades and Spectres of Port End.
Yep. So, but yeah, no, can't do that last minute though. If nobody takes advantage of a choose your own tour slot, we
get a night off.
We effectively get a night off, which isn't the worst thing.
It's been a busy summer.
It has been a busy summer, so. But yeah, we're still very excited about that because we're hoping that it provides the opportunity for people to join us for some of the tours that we haven't had the opportunity to offer as often.
Yeah.
Namely, our 2 brand new tours, which are Spectres and Shades of Court End, and our relatively new tour, the Creepy Tales on Campus.
Because that's only been available on Fridays mostly, so
Yep.
not everybody's been able to do a Friday tour.
Yep, Fridays, alternating Fridays too.
Yeah.
So basically, each of those tours is running once every 2 weeks, which it can be hard if you work on Friday nights or something like that. Maybe not the best opportunity for you, but you'll have more chances with the whole choose your own tour thing. So,
Yes.
anyways, so let's see what I've got.
So we have Alex on, we have Patrick on.
Yep.
Hi guys.
Good evening. Glad that you are here to join us. Hope everybody is. Excuse me.
You okay, bro?
Your beer is talking.
I haven't even had a sip yet.
I had an Italian
Water.
sub. I learned something about myself today. I learned that I can drive and eat subs.
It is a skill.
I'm
It really is a
actually
skill.
impressed with myself.
Yeah. I learned this one a long time ago in Vermont with Gills grinders, which are some of the best grinders ever. But they're massive.
Very good.
Mine was just a mini Jersey Mike sub, but there you go.
Oh, and I think the one other thing was this past Saturday. We had some good tours this past weekend, but our friends down at Richborough had their annual
Brewfest.
Brewtown USA.
How was
or
it?
Brewfest.
It was
fun.
lovely. It was hot. They had massive fan and misters, which saved me
Yes. So
because I about had heat stroke.
yeah, very very hot, but it was a lot of fun. Keep an eye out on that. I think
I'm sure it'll be around again.
I'm sure they'll do it again next summer. So, but yeah, a lot of fun.
It
with
seemed
that.
like a consistent thing.
Yeah.
Everything am I doing?
Yeah.
All right. So
But yeah, so anyways, yes, Henrico County. We're sticking close to home tonight. Like
yeah, because
really,
I decided
really
we
close
needed
to
to
home.
come back home for a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're talking about like all of them?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say it's admittedly a shorter script than we normally do.
Yeah.
Yep.
But-
And we will be. It's not going to be the last time we
Yeah.
finish it. We'll be.
The reason I
Really?
ask is Henrico's such a weird shape.
It is.
It is.
Which actually, yeah. So let me
Dive right
touch
in.
on that.
Do you
So
have props?
no props, no props. But
Besides cats.
yeah. So so let's see. The Henrico County of today. If you're not from Virginia,
like
you might not
C-shaped.
know. It's a very weird shape. It's almost like a barbell, like a curved barbell.
Yeah.
You got the west side, and then you got this relatively narrow sliver that kind of curves around the north side of Richmond, and then the other end of the barbell that is down like
East
the
End.
East End, the Verina area. And so very odd shape, hugs the city of Richmond very closely, but
We're both near and far from Henrico.
yes. And actually, because of the unusual shape of Henrico,
It
Richmond,
makes it hard to research it sometimes.
it does, but you can still find some artifacts, like architectural artifacts here in the city of Richmond from days gone by. Because since, if you like did a whole center of mass type thing for Henrico County, it would fall in the middle of Richmond.
Yeah, we've got the courthouse.
Yeah,
right
we
down
got
there.
it, exactly. We
Courthouse
got
is right down the street.
yeah,
There's mannequins in the windows.
Yep, yeah, Henrico Courthouse, which it has since been retired. They don't use that courthouse anymore. But it was in the very recent history, relatively speaking, that Henrico County Courthouse was in downtown Richmond because of how the county curves around Richmond. So, but yeah, very kind of interesting. But Henrico was much, much larger once upon a time. It's actually, it's kind of a little unsure as to exactly how big it was. But it dates back to 1634. Like a full century back before Richmond was officially carved out and becomes its, like own municipality.
Yeah.
We have Henrico Shire. And it was established as one of the 8 original shires in the Virginia colony. So a vast swath of land that over the next couple of centuries, it was gradually carved up into much smaller municipalities, again, including the city of Richmond. But most of the counties that we have here in central Virginia today were originally a part of Henrico Shire. So very kind of interesting, and in theory, Henrico Shire could have technically reached out as far as what is now modern day Ohio, because of just the way it was. It was one of the westernmost shires of the colony, and so just being the land grab that it was, it could have stretched way, way out there. So having almost 400 years of history now, a lot has gone on in Henrico County, and so it's given us quite the swath of stories for us to share as well. Now, yes, and yeah, the word Shire definitely feel the hobbitses.
Anybody want to go on the hobbitses?
The hobbitses.
Going on an adventure?
Yep. So, but yeah, I do want to mention that before we really dive into these stories tonight, have to acknowledge that there's one individual that has done a lot of research into Virginia hauntings in general, and
That's, of course, Mr. L.B. Taylor.
yeah, L.B. Taylor. Basically, all the stories you're going to hear tonight, he was the first one to do some research on them. Now, it's been some decades, and we have had the opportunity to kind of to grow a little bit on some of the original research that he did. But Mr. L.B. Taylor, very prolific author, he penned 25 books about ghost stories in Virginia. Now, unfortunately, basically all of his books are out of print today.
Yeah, so if you find one, you're lucky.
Yeah, you're not going to find one new. You can find a lot of them used in used bookstores, or even used copies of them on Amazon and online retailers, stuff like that. But yeah, so you're not going to find new copies of his books around these days. We hope that might change eventually.
I would love to see him back in print again.
Now that said, it's fair to say that there's no individual that has done more singular research on the subject of ghosts in Virginia than L.B. Taylor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do also now need to say, unfortunately, Mr. Taylor, he did pass away back in 2014. He's no longer with us. We're not going to get any new Ghosts of Virginia books by L.B. Taylor, but very appreciative of the work that he did over the years to help raise the profile of historic hauntings across the state of Virginia. So we will say that some of the stuff that we're going to share tonight, basically some of it's from interviews, some of it's direct quotes from that that were related to L.B. Taylor, and I do have to say that some of the quotes we did go ahead and took a couple liberties as far as modifying them just for clarity, or to, let's just say, change out some terms that aren't necessarily appropriate in the modern era. We'll leave it at that, but just it's how some people spoke 30, 40 years ago and stuff like that. It is what it is.
Yes.
So, I will start by we'll start over in the west end of the county in what is the Tuckahoe neighborhood. So it's here.
It's also called the West End.
Yes, the West End. Yes. Yep. Yeah. But you got so many like little subsections over there. There's the Tuckahoe. Of course, there's Shore Pump, Glen Allen, so stuff like that. But yeah, the Tuckahoe neighborhood in the West End. We're talking. It's almost on the county line with Goochland.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's way out there. It's here on River Road stands a historic home known as Whichello, or the Tall House. The home was built in 1827 by Catherine Woodward, the daughter of a French barber named Drouin. Drouin had been granted the tract of land by a member of the esteemed Randolph family. L.B. Taylor was granted the opportunity to visit the home in the 1980s by the residents at the time, Mr. and Mrs. J. Donald de Vilbus. He noted that the couple were very gracious hosts who took pride in showing off their beautiful and historic home, which was furnished with period pieces that aligned with the era in which the home was built. The walls of Whichello consist of brick that are about a foot thick, with exterior clapboard to finish the look. The home stands a full 2 stories tall with a finished loft and a basement. There are 2 rooms on each floor that open to the center hall. As you enter the house, the parlor is the first room on the right. The focal point of the room is a large fireplace, which itself is really not all that unusual. Almost every room in the house has a fireplace, but the fireplace in the parlor hosts legends that have long held the attention of those with an affinity for the macabre and treasure hunters alike. One story is that the skeletal remains of the former owner are buried 7 feet beneath the fireplace.
That guy.
There's another tale that states that treasure is secreted away on the property, either within the structure or on its grounds. Unfortunately, not every surface in the home is original, as desperate treasure hunters ripped out the beautiful wainscoting that once graced the walls of the parlor. It is believed that in its earliest days, Whichello was used as a tavern for those traveling between Richmond and Charlottesville or Lynchburg. It would have been primarily served as a rest stop for drinking and eating rather than lodging, as it was just simply too close to the city of Richmond for anyone to justify actually spending the night there. Just a few years after Catherine Woodward built the house, her daughter Eliza Ann Woodward Winston sold the house. The records on this are a little unclear, but it was either in 1838 or 1845. In either case, the new owner was an Englishman of questionable reputation named Richard Whichello. As owner and operator of the tavern, Whichello is said to have accumulated wealth, which, according to one old report, was not come by in manners befitting a Christian gentleman. He was described as being miserly and cruel to his slaves, and it was rumored he ran games of chance, perhaps including cockfighting that were not always honest and above board. There is one reference to him as being the type of man who had a willingness to turn a penny by whatever so means. Here the story is picked up by A. H. Moncure, who claimed he was born in the house, probably sometime during the Civil War years. Later in his life, Moncure recalled a story about Whichello that he had learned in his youth. One night, about dusk in the year 1850, a cattle drover from the valley region to the west arrived at the tavern with a herd which he bedded down in the corrals near the inn. And there he stayed the night. The next day he continued into the southern capital and sold his cattle, returning again to spend the night with the tavern keeper at Whichello. After dinner that night, Whichello invited his guest to accompany him to the country store, which was in reality a crossroads barroom just a few steps from the tavern. There the two men had some drinks, and it was reported that Whichello and the drover became engrossed in a poker game. Anyway, the result was that Whichello went home richer by the amount the dealers had paid for the cattle, and the drover from the valley went to bed broke. In the morning, attendants found the innkeeper on the floor of his bedroom brutally murdered, with his head beaten in with an axe. The drover was gone, so was his old red and white horse, and all of the money Whichello was supposed to have had with him the night before. no trace was ever found of the cattleman, and no other solution for the tavern owner's death has ever been set forth. Other sources say that the man's death caused a few problems for the few friends he had. Where should they bury him? They were afraid of the slaves that he had mistreated digging up his body and treating it to varied indignities in retaliation. Mr. Moncure provided that answer. They dug secretly a hole alongside of the east chimney of the old tavern. Then they tunneled beneath the great brick chimney and shoved the coffin into the tunnel until it rested under the stack. That is Whichello's tomb, and from that fact, which later gained circulation, arose many of the reports of the ghost of the owner returning to guard the treasure which his killer could not find, and which to this day is believed buried around the building.
Gotta love a good legend of a treasure buried.
The stories of the hidden Keshet treasure have persisted, and there have been a number of fruitless searches for it through the years. At some point, the fireplace containing Whichello's remains was dug into, and the wall adjacent to it was ripped apart. One of the most intriguing incidents was recalled by Mrs. Joseph Crenshaw, who ran a tea shop in the house in the 1930s. She recalled many attempts had been made to find the reputed treasure of the man, and some tall tales are told, such as the one an old man told me.
What am I doing? I'm not doing nothing.
Uncle John came to me one day and said he had a device which wasn't any good for papers, and he wanted to try it out on the old Whichello hoard. He dug into what is now the kitchen, but alas, no riches, unless one counts the richness of the yarn old John spun me a treasure.
I have a question.
Yes,
He had a device that wasn't any good for papers?
That's what it said.
that's what he said.
But what was he doing to the paper? He wants to know. He's gonna go find out.
Get to work, Nico. Sorry. That's a strong beer. We'll come back to that. Anyways, so the old man assured me that no less than 3 times had he struck the very box which enclosed the wealth, only to have the spirit trove vanish, such as troves are said to do, because the digger could not refrain from speaking at his good fortune. Each time he said it sank down further out of sight, and the hole filled with water. This last is true enough. The holes in the old kitchen were veritable wells, and have had to be cemented over, the water flowing into them as fast as the shovels made an opening. While Miss Crenshaw may have had some difficulty believing Uncle John's story, even if it was told to her in dead seriousness, she nevertheless began to feel the house was haunted. For one thing, visitors to the tea room began to complain of a feeling. It became so strong to some that they left their ordered refreshments before enjoying them and rushed out of the house. Then there was the mysterious clicking noise that wouldn't go away. Mrs. Crenshaw said it sounded like an invisible telegraph key, and it seemed to follow her throughout the house from room to room. Her maid heard it too. No matter which room Mrs. Crenshaw went into, immediately the clicking sound was there. She told the maid it was electric wire, even though she knew if it really wasn't electric wire, the house would have burned down by now. As Mrs. Crenshaw started to wonder about the traditions and legends of the house, she decided to put her faith in a source that would earn her the ridicule of her husband and friends, Lady Wonder, the fortune-telling horse on the Petersburg Pike.
Because why not?
Yeah. If you don't know,
And you're out of ideas that are logical,
Yeah.
we're going to ask a psychic horse.
go to the psychic horse. So
Yeah.
and actually, this story doesn't dive into Lady Wonder very much, and really, we don't.
We should actually
We
do
should.
that.
She's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, Lady Wonder was really fascinating. She was, just as it sounds like, a psychic horse. And they put this to the test several times over. They would basically ask the horse questions, and then it would stomp out the answers
On a keyboard.
On a keyboard. And so many people tried to prove it wrong and said
Trip it up.
and
Say
stuff
it
like
was the owner given command.
Yeah, but they could not really trip it up. They tested so many different ways, and Lady Wonder managed to come through time and again.
We have caught Patrick's attention.
Yeah. So now I will say, we just mentioned a little while, as we started, our friends down at Richbrow, they, to their credit, like to name their beers off of local lore, and they do have a beer called Psychic Horse, which is, of course, named after Lady Wonder.
It's a good beer.
Mm-hmm.
Not my favorite, but it's a good one.
Yeah. So, anyways, now, after a few trivial questions to Lady Wonder, Mrs. Crenshaw asked Lady, "Is there a treasure in my house?" Horse spelled out the affirmative. "Where is it?" Lady Wonder then spelled out chimney. "Which chimney?" "East," was the response, which correlates with the legend. Trying for more details, she asks one more question and receives the answer, 10 feet. Well, Mrs. Crenshaw was shocked at the answers, and while she eyed up that fireplace many times in the years that followed, she did not have the faith to actually tear up her property. The news of the legend soon spread, and Mrs. Crenshaw began receiving requests from Richmonders and others interested in seances and medium readings. Mrs. Crenshaw could not grant them all access to the home, but the first medium to preside over a seance saw 3 spirits. The first was a little girl, identified as the niece of a participant at the seance. The second was Sabra, who was the nanny that took care of Mrs. Crenshaw when she was young. The spirit was pleased that Mrs. Crenshaw finally knew that she was with her. The final spirit was a man dressed in hunting clothes. She stated that he seemed to live at the home and that this was Richard Whichello. Several other people reported seeing him after the seance with their descriptions of his hunting clothes all the same. At another seance held in the house, a letter was written using spirit writing. It read, "My treasure is not in the house, but in the yard. You should look in the backyard about 100 feet away from the house, marked by a little," and then there's like a little drawing that they did as part of the spirit writing, "and it is about 5 feet under the earth. You should look toward the east when leaving the back steps and count until told to stop, then go back 3 paces. It was signed with the initials W.R.W. In other words, Richard Whichello. The Crenshaws never did search for the treasure. They were exhausted from repairs that needed to be made to the basement floor and chimneys from previous treasure hunters who searched for it. But she lived with spirits for 50 years at Whichello. She thought maybe Richard Whichello was content that his treasure would not be found.
I'm going to step out for half a second.
Yep, yep.
I dropped my phone.
So, and Whichello, if you're interested in looking it up, it is spelled Whichchello. So, not like a witch, but
the other witch.
The other witch.
Which way?
So,
And Nico is walking me beautifully.
he's the star of the show.
All right. So we're going to talk about the mad carpenter of Cottonmouth, Cockermouth, and Kukymuth.
Yeah,
They're all the same.
They're all the same. The real name is apparently Cockermouth, which is actually named after a town in northwest England. But the name has been altered and all kinds of things and misspelled grossly in some cases over the years. But please proceed.
Yeah.
This was a rabbit hole for me. I spent hours trying to figure out what was going on with this story, and I still didn't quite come up with the answers I want. Proceed. Proceed.
I came home to this frustration.
Oh, this is going to be fun then. I'm excited.
Alright, so we're on the east end of Henrico to the relatively rural atmosphere along the eastern banks of the James River. And it all starts with a cryptic newspaper headline. On Sunday, September 27th, 1874, the Richmond Enquirer published a small headline that said, "The Henrico Ghost, a specter, Carpenter running his saw." A brief article described an extraordinary mystery that remained unsolved for well over 100 years. It occurred at the old Cockermouth plantation about 2.5 miles below the city of Osborne Turnpike. And it's just to the south of an historic Tree Hill estate where Lafayette took in a horse race during his visit to Richmond in 1824. It's also where the city of Richmond was surrendered to the approaching Union Army on April 3rd of 1865. The Cockermouth plantation was an old-fashioned two-story framed building which, in that day, commanded a beautiful view of the James River. In the mid-1800s, it came to be known as the Tatum Residence, a home that bore the splendid reputation and was the scene of many a hospitable gathering. Now, of course, all that changed abruptly shortly after J.W. Southard, collector of Ryan Township and a gentleman of good standing, moved into the house with his family. Specifically, the date was September 23rd of 1874. On that night commenced the manifestations upon the premises which are beyond the ken of any man, and which, to say the least, are passing strange.
Passing strange.
Passing strange.
They did like this. They spoke funny.
They
They
did.
smoke meat.
I mean, it's funny.
It's strange to us.
It's strange to us. It is neat. I'm not going to argue. It is neat. It's just passing strange.
Southard, who slept on the ground floor, was awakened early that evening by the noise of what he described as the drawing of lines on an underside of the floor of his chamber with some blunt instrument. This was followed by the unmistakable sounds of a sawing and blows of a hammer and other noises similar to those made in using various carpenter tools. Southard got up and investigated, but he could find no source for the disturbance. The next night he heard the same sounds and again could find nothing. In fact, as soon as he got out of bed, the noise stopped. He walked around the house, stood outside in the dark for some time. As soon as he returned to bed, the phantom carpenter began banging away again and continued until 2 in the morning. When the sawing and hammering began again on Friday, the third successive night, Southard decided he had had enough and he was going to get to the bottom of things once and for all. By this time, his wife was terrified. She was leaving to visit relatives relatives in the country until things cleared up. There we go. Working like a man possessed, Southard tore up the floorboards of his chamber, but there was nothing there. He then loaded his double-barreled shotgun, took extra shells, grabbed a knife and a light. He went outside, placed the knife in its teeth like a pirate,
Nice.
crawled under as far as he could underneath the house, and then fired both barrels in the direction of where the noises seemed to come from. Satisfied he'd done all he could, and that if the noises were still being made by any mortal being, he had silenced the source for good. He then retired to bed. No sooner had he turned down the lamp and pulled up his covers when the hammering and sawing began anew and continued through the night. Curiously, it was noted that Southard had had 2 vicious dogs that slept under the house. Not once during all this activity did they stir, except when he blasted his shotgun. Southard was described in the article as an ex-soldier who was afraid of nothing and not a person to make any statement of this character unless it was true. In fact, he offered to take anyone who doubted his story to his place for their own experience. He wanted to resolve this dilemma if possible. Now, there's no record of what happened after this, whether or not he actually found out the cause or whether the incessant nocturnal work persisted in a spirit carpenter that eventually drove him and his family from the house. As far as Chris and I were able to find, the house doesn't seem to be standing anymore, and the tract of land that it was on seems to have been broken up into other parcels of land at this point in time.
That was one of the most aggravating pieces.
Yeah, not knowing what happened to the house. We saw it was for sale in 1972,
78.
78.
So they said.
Yeah.
I'm almost starting to wonder if that was a borderline fraudulent listing, that somebody was trying to pass off some old-looking places as the Cockermouth estate.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know.
Yeah.
And it really, the one absolutely certain remnant of Cockermouth that is still around today is the name of that one road.
Yeah.
It's Kukymuth today. So apparently, for some reason, which I was not able to discern despite my searches, in 1942, 1943, whether there was a change in ownership or something like that, they decided that they were going to change the name from Cockermouth, which is spelled just how it sounds, to Kukymuth, which is Kukymuth. And Kukymuth Road still exists out there off of Osborne Turnpike in eastern Henrico.
Yeah.
So you can look it up and see it on the map. But yeah, apparently that name change, for whatever reason, abruptly happened in 1942, 1943.
But
No.
honestly, if this spiritual Carpenter was still going on, I wouldn't be surprised if that house got torn down because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be that. There was never follow-up. Even though this guy was very real, very credible, very respected in the community, and this article was written, they didn't do a follow-up, which also just blows my mind. But in any case, so yeah.
Anybody got a time machine so we can go back and find out?
Yeah. Yeah, so I spent a lot of time scouring the property records to see what I could find, and still effectively came up empty. So, might have to just take a drive out there and have a little look around with my own two eyes.
We're going on an adventure!
Anyways, yes. Yeah, and now I'm hungry for cookies. Kukymuth. Yeah,
I got Swiss rolls. That's the best I got.
Are we out of smart cookies?
There are smart cookies.
Okay.
Are
Just
we
open
offering smart cookies?
If you
we
want
would-
some s'more cookies, they're in the pantry.
Do I go into the pantry
Yes,
right
you
now
are
and bring
welcome.
a smart cookie?
You are welcome to do so if you'd like.
They're in a Ziploc bag.
And there's a plug bag in the pantry, and the
Yep.
pantry is the thing that goes, yeah.
It's the one door, the big one.
As soon, yeah, the one big door as soon as you get in the kitchen.
Gotcha.
So,
Go ahead and grab.
It's either the second or third shelf.
You got it. Bring us smart cookies, don't you worry, guys.
Because yes, I have a Girl Scout that no longer sells cookies.
Yep. Oh,
But
Alexa said something.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
Never mind. It's okay. Anyways, so we have, this is like episode 91 for us. And to date, until this moment, we have not repeated a story.
I've been good.
We are going to break that little tradition right now. We are going to repeat a story that we did first back in, it's been over 3 years,
Way back.
over 3 years ago, on our Haunted Highways episode 1, which was, I think it was in like April of 2020. And we're doing this because we simply cannot do Haunted Henrico without talking about Pocahontas Parkway. So, yeah. So Pocahontas Parkway, out there in eastern Henrico, Route 895, toll road stretching 8.8 miles between Henrico and Chesterfield counties here in Virginia. Construction began on October 13, 1998, and was planned to be completed in April of 2002, but it wasn't completed fully until September of that year. A portion of the parkway opened in May of 2002, and shortly thereafter, stories of 3 ghostly Native Americans started to circulate.
Now, where is this?
895, Pocahontas Parkway between Route 95, or I-95, and it basically goes to the airport.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it starts south of town, down in Chesterfield, but then it comes up into Henrico.
Not the way I got confused.
Yeah. So the first sighting was from a truck driver. He reported seeing Native Americans on horseback dashing along through the cars and trucks. Drum beats and chanting accompanied the sightings and came from the direction of the nearby woods. Spirits with torches would be seen dotting the wooded hilltops while the natives would dash through and around the toll booths. A story reported in the Richmond Times-Dispatch stated that the Parkway was built where Native Americans once hunted, fished, and lived. They even stated burials may have been disturbed as a part of the construction. The locals, when interviewed, claimed to have heard the drumming and chants for years. This was nothing new for them. They believed that the building of the Parkway was not what actually had started the hauntings. Instead, the ghosts were doing what they had always done, just now across 6 lanes of traffic. Another truck driver believed it was the local tribe protesting when he saw the ghostly natives on the Parkway, but when he mentioned it to the toll taker explained that she had heard and seen too many things for it to be anything but ghostly activity. She filed a report per regulations at the end of her shift. The state police were called in to investigate, but, as you might imagine, they found nothing. Troopers working the graveyard shift in that area responded to a dozen calls about the natives, and 2 incidents were documented in incident reports. The first was at 3:11 a.m. on July 1st, 2002, and the second 2 days later at 1:44 a.m. Both reports described the specter as having cloudy but fully formed legs, arms, and torso, but only the vague outline of a head. Both troopers and toll workers have reported hearing native drums, mingling whoops and shouts, and cries of dozens of voices that could even drown out the noise of the tractor trailers. It lasted until long after midnight. Someone suggested to a trooper who had heard it that it was the kenneled dogs or from some geese or ducks or something like that. His response, "I know what a bunch of hunting dogs sound like, and it doesn't sound anything like that." Deanna Beecham of the local Nasman tribe stated that these activities were absolutely not a protest by Native Americans. The Nasman were waiting to receive their federal recognition, and as such, such activities would do more harm than good at the time. Chief Stephen Atkins of the Chickahominy tribe agreed with her assessment. Since receiving their federal recognition, things at the Parkway actually seem to have quieted down. They haven't gone away completely, but the spirits seem to be a little quieter about it these days.
And we have done haunted highways twice now.
Yeah, we had 2 Haunted Highway
Yeah.
episodes.
So
They
you
were
can-
both in 2020.
So check back in 2020 and you'll be able to see those episodes.
I should have grabbed that while I was out there. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You know, Prime Day deliveries at 8 o'clock at night. We're all good. All right, so now we're going to go over to Meadow Farm, which is another one of our historic resources.
We used to
And-
go there for field trips.
Yep. Did you know there's a ghostly klepto there?
I did. They told us when we went.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's one of those places Chris and I still need to get to.
You should. It's really cool.
Yeah, because it's not far from here.
No, it's not. It's not, and it's cute.
All right, so it attracts thousands of people per year to partake in its various educational and entertaining programs that they offer. This is Meadow Farm, once located on Mountain Road in Glen Allen, and it's listed, of course, on our National Historic Register. The farm was donated to the county in 1976 by Elizabeth Adam Crump in memory of her husband, General Shepherd Crump. The land had been in his family since 1713. The architectural studies disclosed that one time the property had been on a native site along the North Run Creek. Today there are picnic shelters, playground equipment, alongside bar museum, barn, kitchen, smokehouse, showing that modern development and historic preservation can coexist. Some brief history on the farm. Dr. and Mrs. John Mosby Shepherd were the original owners of the 165-acre farm estate. They raised 9 children, and succeeding generations continued to run the estate. In August of 1800, 2 slaves by the name of Tom and Pharaoh warned Mosby Shepherd of a proposed slave uprising, which became known as Gabriel's Rebellion. Mosby Shepherd notified the governor, James Monroe, who called out the local military guard, and the rebellion was thwarted. The effects of the conspiracy were profound as a result. County and state leaders instituted legislation that would tightly regulate the movements of enslaved and free blacks, making their lives even more harsh. Gabriel patrolled the area and began picking up conspirators. Gabriel escaped downriver to Norfolk, but he was spotted and betrayed there by another slave named Will Billy King. More than 70 enslaved men were arrested by law enforcement for conspiracy and insurrection. Gabriel was returned to Richmond for questioning, but he didn't submit. The trial was heard by 5 justices rather than a jury, and a recruit, Ben Woolfolk, testified that Gabriel intended on writing the words "death" or "liberty" on a silk flag, referring to Patrick Henry's "Give me liberty" or "Give me death" speech of 1775. One of the enslaved men reportedly said, "I have nothing more to offer than what General Washington would have had to offer had he been taken by the British and put to trial." Gabriel, his 2 brothers, and 23 other slaves were hanged. 1 individual committed suicide before his arraignment. 8 enslaved men were moved or sold outside of Virginia. 13 were found guilty, but were pardoned by the governor. 25 were acquitted. 2 men received their freedom for informing their slaveholder of the plot. Mrs. Crump was said to have been a little bit eccentric. She loved beaded jewelry. When Wanda Burdett of Richmond was visiting the Farm Museum, she said that she was walking through the museum with a friend, and suddenly her beaded watch slid off her arm and flew across the floor. It was like somebody had snatched it from her wrist, even though the watch had a secure clamp on it. When she told the tour guide about it, they just laughed and said, "Oh, that's just Mrs. Crump. She loves beaded jewelry." Another incident with Mrs. Crump and jewelry, well, that was reported by staff writer Tom Howard for the Richmond Times-Dispatch on a visit to the park, because Howard had an interest in the paranormal, and he had heard that there is an upstairs window where it's possible to catch a glimpse of the ghost in the old Crump house. Curious about these sightings, he interviewed Ronald Clark, who was an employee at the park at the time. Clark told him that one morning when he arrived at work, he was accompanied by his 7-year-old nephew. Clark happened to look up and saw that someone had pulled back the curtains of the upstairs bedroom and was looking out. His nephew saw the same thing, but added he thought it was a woman. Clark knew no one was supposed to be in the house. He knocked on the door several times, but no one answered. At 9:45, Sam Jones arrived and was told of the sighting. Sam was the one who had the keys to the building, and he and Clark went to search it. There was no one there. The house is equipped with an alarm, motion detectors, so if someone managed to get in without tripping the alarm, and the motion detectors would have gone off. Of course, there are clear lines of sight around the house. Clark would have seen someone exiting the building when he had been waiting for Sam to show up. Today, it still has not been explained. Site manager Linda Eckler had her own experience in that bedroom while she was giving a tour. She was standing by the mantel of the fireplace, and there was a squeak toy on the mantel that she remembered being in a certain position. She turned her head to point out something in the room, and when she turned back, the toy had been turned 45 degrees from where it had been. It definitely gave her an unsettled feeling for the rest of her tour. Another one of the staff members reported missing 2 brooches from her office in a small room of the house. She looked high, she looked low. There was no luck. She could not find them. Sometime later, when she closed her office for the night, she said she remembered clearing the top of her desk of everything but a piece of paper. Because she was the last one to leave, she set the alarms and locked up. The next day, she turned off the alarms, she went into her office, and there, beside the sheet of paper on top of the desk, was one of her 2 missing brooches. Are we looking?
What?
You're searching?
For
I don't know. You're searching for something.
I'm posting our 2 Haunted Highway episodes that we previously did.
Gotcha.
Anyways, yes.
Sir, you don't get cookies. Come back
He
over
wants
here.
them. He's been so good.
Chocolate is not good for kitties.
But he's been such a good boy.
That would not end well.
No, he hasn't. It's
So-
all lies.
So this next story is actually, this is it's a personal account from somebody that was a fan of L.B. Taylor. He had quite the following, and when he started publishing these, his Haunted Virginia books, people started writing to him and sharing their own stories.
So he had sections in each of the book that was from the mailbag.
Yeah. So we want to go ahead and throw one or two of those here into the show because they're interesting, a little offbeat, something kind of different, and definitely in a much more modern era as well. This first one comes from a woman named Lisa Funnerty of Highland Springs. Now, don't know if Miss Funnerty is even still around because this letter that she wrote, this was decades ago now. This goes back a ways. And what she wrote was that we lived at 12 East Sedgwick Street in Sandston for close to 8 years between 1980 and 1988. I was very happy and content in that house. I never experienced anything out of the way or ever saw anything. I used to go up in the attic and sit by myself for hours at a time to read my books. My husband, however, was another story. He said the house was haunted. The owner, Mr. Perkowski, who had lived in the house before us, told us that an elderly couple in their 80s had lived there before him. He said the wife died first and her husband didn't last a month before he too passed away. Shortly after learning this, my husband began having nightmares. The first time he woke up rattled and terrified and told me that he had dreamed an old man was on the front porch and wanted to get in. He then started having the same vision over and over, at least once a week. He would wake up yelling. One night in the nightmare, the old man was seen coming through the front door. My husband screamed, "He's in the house! He's in the house!" Over a period of almost 8 years, the dreams slowly progressed in this manner. First, the old man was on the porch, then coming through the front door. Next, he was moving through the living room, then at the end of the hallway, at the front of the bathroom door, coming through our bedroom door. And finally, the last dreams my husband had before he moved out of the house were that the old man was at the foot of our bed. My husband told me that he feared something terrible would happen when the old man got around to the side of the bed. Call it coincidence or whatever you will, but at that time, in September of 1988, I was beginning my 9th month of pregnancy with my second child. I suddenly got ill. I told my doctor something was terribly wrong. I was having trouble walking and my blood pressure dropped. All I wanted to do was lay down and sleep. It was viral encephalitis. My brain swelled. I later learned it came from a mosquito bite. I was in intensive care, close to death. The doctors told my mother there was a possibility I could die, but if I did, they would try to save the unborn child. At times, I was delirious and hallucinating. My mother said I kept telling her over and over that my doppelganger was in the room, and for her to not let it get me. Somehow, I slowly got better and gave birth to a healthy young girl, and I don't remember anything about the doppelganger. We moved into a house on Grove Avenue in Highland Springs in December of 1988. We'd not been in the house long when one night I put my 2-year-old son in his bed, and after I walked out of the room, he started yelling, "Mama, Mama!" I went back in, and he was crying and pointing to the middle of the room, saying, "There's a man, make him leave." There was nothing there. He was so scared and crying that I picked him up and took him into my bedroom, sat him on my lap, and comforted him. All of a sudden, the color drained from his face, and his eyes opened wide in terror. He pointed toward the bedroom door and yelled, "There he is! There he is!" Again, I saw nothing. Then my husband had another nightmare, his final one. He jumped up out of bed screaming, "He followed us! He's here! You don't belong here! Get out! Go back to your house in Sandston!" My husband had not had a nightmare since. It's a pretty freaky story.
It is. It's a very freaky story. Especially when you have no idea exactly who these people are. Are they the old couple that lived there?
Mm-hmm. The fact that they followed.
Yeah.
Ew.
The
Hey
fact that-
Mac, how you doing?
Mac Adams!
Hi, buddy! You like our new buddy?
We missed you. We do miss you.
We do miss you.
Hope you're doing well.
Alright, so this is another one that I've been...
And Donnie's there too. Hey, Donnie.
Yeah. He was asking about the
About Ben?
yeah, his name is Ben, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
his name
Ben.
is Ben.
Ah!
I don't know why I decided to call him Ben, but it's Ben.
It works.
Alright, so this is known as the little boy in the sailor suit. This is a grand manor home from the 1800s that resides on 20 beautiful acres in the Tuckahoe district. It's Woodside. a Greek revival style rural villa built between 1854 and 1858, the ancestral home of the Wickham family located on Gaskins Road. Julia Wickham Poacher, around the turn of the 20th century, wrote about the house, describing it as one of the most beautiful estates I have ever seen. She said the property consisted of most varied lands, hills, valleys, pretty little mountain streams, woods, open spaces, and pastures. In short, it had a variety of land and landscape. It is believed Woodside was built on an area that was once a native village. In the 18th century, the land belonged to the Randolph family of Tuckahoe, and it was from this holding that John Wickham bought an 8.
Contact issue?
Yes, it just rippled. Okay, there we go. Now I can see. It bought a 629-acre tract of land in 1800. John Wickham later built up his plantation holdings to more than 2,700 acres, bordering both the James River and the Tuckahoe Creek. On the main floor, there are 4 large rooms with 12-foot ceilings and 3 smaller rooms. The upper floor includes 3 bedrooms, a wide hall with 12-foot ceilings, plus a bathroom, a wine room, and storeroom. A large English basement contains a central hall almost 10 feet wide and 6 rooms with 9-foot ceilings. The kitchen, dining room, and other rooms are in the basement, which in the decades before modern heating and air conditioning were cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter than the rooms above. There's even a secret door to a library. My kind of place. During the Civil War, a squad of Colonel Ulrich Dahlgren's Union cavalry raided Woodside, freed the slaves, and emptied the smokehouse. Although there was no appreciable damage to the house itself, the war brought considerable tragedy to the resident family. At least 2 members of the family were killed in the fighting, and 1 young mother and 2 of her children also passed away. In the years following the Civil War, Woodside came upon hard times. By 1890, the house was run down and overgrown, with boom grass growing up to the doors. However, the historic home was eventually restored and preserved with painstaking care. For more than a century, it has reputedly been haunted. Julia Wickham does not deny this. She says there are spirits here, but they're friendly. They're good presences. I must admit that when I was a child, I was sometimes afraid to come here, but now that I live here, I've never gotten a negative feeling. There's nothing evil here. Julia feels that since the house has always been in the family, any ghosts at Woodside are probably relatives. Friends who have stayed at the house told her of a peculiar phenomenon. They said they hear carriages of another era right up to the front of the house. They thought this was particularly strange because the driveway today is actually on the back of the house. I explained to them that in the 19th century and early 20th century, the driveway was in the front of the house, and that might explain those noises there. Julia also adds that she especially likes the library with its secret door. It's definitely the best room in the house for feeling the presence of past relatives. We believe that we have a tidy ghost in that room. My husband's a skeptic, but we have both found someone or something has replaced books my husband has taken down to read and put them back on the shelves at night. We know neither one of us did that. One spirit Julia has felt a strong sensation of is that of her grandmother, who was born in the house and lived there until the age of 93. She died in 1995. Julia recalled shortly after she passed away, I was packing up some of her stuff, and I was very disturbed and crying. Suddenly, I felt someone come up behind me and hug me. I thought it was my husband, but when I turned around, there was nobody there. And I even heard somebody say, Julia, a couple of times. I believed it was my grandmother letting me know that everything's okay. There's also an occasional apparition seen in the upstairs bedroom. It's a vision of a small boy in a sailor suit. Julia's 3-year-old nephew once told her he had seen a little boy in a sailor suit in the room. This mystery was probably solved when Julia actually found an old photo of her late Uncle Littleton. It was taken when he was a little boy. As you guessed it, he was wearing a sailor suit.
I like that story.
That's a fun story. I like happy ghost houses.
So we're going to go ahead. We're going to wrap up tonight with another, say, letter to the author, if you will. This is this letter came from Elisa Chappell, and a little bit more on the recent side. It was sent in December of 1999. He and then in turn went ahead and published it in one of his
Imagine
Ghost
calling
Review
that
books.
recent.
Yeah, I know.
I know. It
But
makes me feel old.
It makes me feel old.
I graduated high school in '99.
Oh, I was born in 95, so
Yeah.
I started elementary school in 99.
Oh God. So, Lisa wrote, when I was 15, well, she's writing back, this was back in 1973, she wrote the letter later. The story goes back half a century. So, when I was 15, back in 1973, my family and I moved into a tri-level in the far west end of Richmond. The subdivision is called Tuckahoe Village, and obviously a tri-level in a not-so-old subdivision is a relatively new house, and I wouldn't think that there would be a ghost in such a place. But as soon as we moved in, I started seeing what I've since called streaks of light. These streaks only appeared in the lower part of the house, which consisted of a den, a bedroom I shared with my 13-year-old sister, a half bath, and a laundry room. I never saw anything on the upper levels of the house, but when I would be in the den, just out of the corner of my eye, I would see a whitish streak of light arc into a corner or behind a chair or into the hallway. They were never directly in front of me, just off to the side, enough to catch my attention and make me turn my head to try and see them better. They would be on the left side of the room or the right. It didn't seem to matter, and eventually they began to make me curious. What were they, and how was the light getting into the room? At first I thought it must be car lights from outside, reflecting and catching my eye. When I would see one, I'd jump up and run to the window to see if a car had just driven by, but there never was a car. I'd adjust the shades in the room to see if maybe light could get in around the edges, but I never could figure it out. Eventually, I ignored them, but I saw them every day, and it didn't seem to matter if it was day or night. I simply had no idea what they were, and I couldn't explain them. By the time we had lived in the house for 2 years, I began seeing them in my room at the back of the house. This was very confusing to me since I could not figure out how light from cars would be able to get into my room with only one small window on the side. I began to think I must be seeing things since I didn't see them anywhere else in the house. However, one night when I was 18 and soon to be married to my high school sweetheart, I saw something that would make me realize I had been living with a ghost for 3 years. My sister and I had just gone to bed and turned out the light. I remember laying back on the pillow and looking up toward the ceiling. I was definitely not asleep. Suddenly, at ceiling height, just above my feet, an upper torso appeared. It was a woman, and she looked like a 1920s flapper. She even had the little band around her head, as was the style. I could see her grinning face, neck, shoulders, and upper body were very clearly, but nothing below that. Within seconds, she swooped toward my face, and immediately to the right of my face was a bright light. I can remember thinking to myself, if you think I'm going to turn my head and look right at you, you're crazy. After about 10 seconds, the light just faded away. I whispered to my sister, Wendy, did you see that? But she must have been asleep, as she didn't answer. I took a deep breath and thought, well, we have a ghost. And if that's the best you can do, knock yourself out. It seems odd, but I felt like it couldn't get much worse than that, and it didn't kill me, so I turned over to face the wall and went to sleep.
Great reasoning.
Yeah, she got away with it. She goes on to close out, I've read in your books about others who have seen strange streaks of light, and I've also seen what people claim to be photographs of ghosts that look like what I've seen on a daily basis. I never saw the woman ghost after that final occurrence, and I married and left home shortly thereafter. I wonder if she's still there.
So yeah, fun little stories
Yep.
from Henrico area.
And of course, that is just kind of scratching the surface. There's other stuff in Henrico,
Yes.
but we thought that was a nice mix for this evening. And of course, we finally did it. We repeated a story. We did so intentionally because, again, we felt we couldn't do this episode without bringing up the Pocahontas Parkway. So
I'm surprised you didn't talk about the battlefield.
there's Well, which one?
The one that
Seven Pines, Malvern Hill.
Old Harbor.
Cold Harbor's actually in.
Cold Harbor's technically Mechanicsville, I think.
It is, yeah. So it's not
But
Henrico.
there's it might technically be Verina.
Well, which is in Henrico.
Oh, okay. In that case, Fort Eustis.
Oh, yes.
Not Eustis.
No. I know. What
Harrison.
We all knew what I was talking about,
Yeah.
though.
Well, Fort Eustis is actually down in Tidewater. But
Yeah.
Yes.
Harrison, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it is Harrison.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, probably won't be the last we hear of Henrico County.
Oh, certainly not.
Yes.
It's old and it's haunted.
Yep.
But next on the agenda.
We're really kind of we're not. Let me be perfectly clear. We are not scraping the bottom of the barrel.
No, we are not.
But we are doing an episode solely on
One city.
Columbus, Ohio. Now we have done.
See, here's the deal. When you bring up Ohio and you say you're not scraping the bottom of the barrel, I have to wonder.
I know.
No, I have an entire script that's Cleveland, Ohio,
I
too.
know, and I knew that it's like. But yes.
I had so many stories in both Columbus and Cleveland. They each got their own script.
We haven't done stories like city-specific scripts before. We've done Key West, we've done Charleston, we've done Salem, but yes,
Columbus,
2 weeks
Ohio.
from now we are doing Columbus, Ohio, because there are some pretty cool stories there. So, we are going to put that out there, and yeah, we're something to look forward to. Yeah. But yes, Ohio. We're going to be talking about Ohio.
Yep, and then after that we're going to talk about Haunted Toronto. So we're doing 2 back-to-back cities.
Okay, all right.
See, Toronto I can see, because it's big and also a cool place.
Yeah. But Columbus, I mean, you gotta give it some credit actually. That you start digging in and they got some stuff going on.
Some spooky
And Roberta, actually, you're from Ohio, if I recall. I think Roberta here, who I'm sure mainly watches for Nico and the kitty cats. Come here. Come here. Oh,
But
I
I'm playing.
am spicy, Daddy.
Violence. I choose violence.
I
But
was
yes.
playing.
Oh.
But yeah, Roberta is watching from Ohio. So yes, we are going to be doing some stories from Columbus, and
Do they have a ghost story?
They do.
I think so. Yes. And at some point, with some of the mountain of stories that we actually have, I'm sure that we'll be coming back and probably doing Cleveland or something like that.
Yeah,
But,
we will be doing Cleveland at some point.
and
Brandon
Mazzullo's from there as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he actually, some of his books were part of my research.
Yep. But Brandon Mazzullo, really great guy, lives in Ohio, written a couple of books on haunted stuff in Ohio. He is going to be back for Hanover Tavern Paracon again.
Which will be second to last weekend in January.
Yep. So yeah, but if you want to go ahead and get that kind of
your
blocked
calendar.
on your calendar, Hanover Tavern Paracon, whatever the exact dates are, it's the second to last weekend of next January. A lot of stuff between now and then. We'll be talking it up later, but Brandon, really great guy, wrote some great books.
Yeah. Got a really cool British sense of humor.
Yeah.
I was very amused when I was reading his books. So.
Yeah. But yeah, and Roberta's from the Cleveland area.
Cool.
So we'll be getting there. We'll be doing some stories about that sometimes in the not
Coming
too
up.
distant future.
Yeah, coming up.
And we do, of course, we know that we also have a outstanding request for Boston as well.
Okay.
So
Just
Boston.
say I've started a Massachusetts script, but I can see what I can find on Boston
Yep.
that we haven't done already.
Yep.
Because we've done a few things in Boston.
We have done a few things in Boston, but well, that said, we did Haunted Canada, and at least 2, if not 3, of the stories were from Toronto.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that we got more stuff for Toronto, but yeah. Anyways, so yeah, got haunted cities over the next couple of weeks, and we'll see where we end up going from there. But yes, Columbus, Ohio, 2 weeks from today, and Toronto, Canada, in about a month.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, don't forget, you can come on out, see us at Oddballs and Antiques off of West Broad Street in
On Saturday.
in Henrico on Saturday for their summer ween event. What else we got going on? We got the John Marshall House tour that we're going to be doing. Of course, we have tours that are running basically every night of the week, so you can come out and join us.
Well, I feel like we haven't like touched on why the John Marshall House tour is so special.
Yes,
in a
because
bit.
you do get to go inside the John Marshall house.
Yeah,
Yes.
and like they don't have overhead lights, so it's like a real nice spooky atmosphere.
Yeah. And CPRI, Center for Paranormal Research, will be there.
Oh, cool! Yay!
They will be talking, of course, about the investigations that they do at the John Marshall House and the evidence that they have caught. And for those of you who are not familiar with them, they are our local TAPS family affiliate here in Virginia.
They do a lot of work with Preservation Virginia. So John
They
Marshall.
are so cool.
Yeah.
They are so cool.
Yes, they are awesome people. But yeah, do a lot of work with Preservation Virginia. So they're frequently at the John Marshall House, and they're also frequently down at Bacon's Castle.
Yep.
And they will sometimes. Words are hard all of a sudden. In any case, they will be helping with the John Marshall House tour that we were doing at the end of this month and at the end of next month. And you can also catch them doing some tours down at Bacon's Castle as well. I don't know when the next one they have lined up is. It might be in October, but they're always very popular tours down there at Bacon's Castle. So.
Yes. And of course, we do have October stuff in the works. We will have an
yes.
event at the Branch Museum again. We will also be at Nightmare Weekend doing panels again.
Yep, details pending on all of that.
Yep.
Stay tuned, and yeah, we're looking forward to that. The details are starting to shake out. October's going to be crazy busy for us, but we're looking forward to it. Between what we're getting set up and what I'm sure will still is coming to be set up, going to be a really busy month, and we can use your help in the sense that if you see something, share it, tell your friends about it. We want to be able to host as many folks as possible. Well, really any time of year, but particularly in October. So with the events we got coming up, when we start posting them, let your friends know. Share away. We really appreciate it. It helps us out. It helps our partners out, and yeah, allows us to keep doing what we do.
Oh, also, we have a TikTok page that Chris has been doing stuff on.
Yes, I have thrown together a few little quirky tidbits on TikTok. So yes, TikTok, Richmond Haunts, I think.
You oughta make a link tree.
Oh God, is it getting to that point? Do I need to make a link tree?
I think so.
Oh, well, no, I don't.
Because you can't add like a TikTok link on your Instagram like you can YouTube.
Yep. Oh, okay. TikTok is at Haunts of Richmond, so that one fairly straightforward. But yeah, at Haunts of Richmond, and then of course everything that we do here, our Facebook live shows, we do download and then subsequently upload them to YouTube. So as great of a platform as Facebook has been for us to be able to go ahead and get these shows out there and get them recorded in the first place, I have to admit that YouTube makes a better archive.
Yes.
It's much easier to manage. So if you want to search for some particular story or something like that we have done on one of these shows, YouTube is the place to look because it's just so much easier, honestly, to work with on that platform. So yeah, you can look up Haunts of Richmond on YouTube as well. But yeah, gosh, we got
You're a busy
so much.
boys.
Yeah, we got so much going on. We keep busy. But and yes, Dana, we do know Boston. We got it on the list.
Yes, I have literally 12 scripts in the work right now.
So we will aim to get to Boston sooner than later.
Yes.
So yeah. Anyways,
Ben says it's time to go to bed.
for you,
Yes. Because I have to open a coffee shop tomorrow.
she turns into a pumpkin at like 9:30.
Yeah.
I know. Yes, I know. It's already about 9:45.
Well, her hair's already kind of turning red.
It's starting. The process is starting. I'll start sprouting leaves soon.
All right. Well, now we are rambling, but anyways, thank you all again for watching, and come on out and see us at one of our events. Drop us a note online, and yeah,
We will see you all in 2 weeks.
Everybody stay cool out there in the summer heat.
Yes.
But yes, come join us in the shadows. So, have a good night, y'all.
Bye.